Hello friends, welcome back to A Good Life Farm. So I'm out here in the greenhouse today, my Shima shed as I call it. I thought I would just come out and have a little bit of a conversation with you, a little bit of a coffee chat, and just talk about a topic that I get a lot of questions about and I don't think I've ever really addressed in any previous videos. So we're going to talk about holidays today. So if you've been around for a little bit, you know that a few years ago I did a card swap. And the reason I did it is because I miss the nostalgia of receiving letters and cards in the mail. You know, I have a folder in my house that's stored away that is full of letters, and it's every letter that Mr. Smith and I wrote to each other when we were in basic training in the Army. And one of these days I'm going to sit down and share the story of how he and I met, and those letters have something to do with it. But you know, we have these letters, and I have a video actually that I filmed several years ago where I had actually come across the last letter my grandmother ever wrote to me before she passed away. And what a treasure it was to me to be able to have that. And, you know, we look back at our family histories and things like that, and it is always special to come across a letter that was written by someone. I mean, when we look at the history of our nation, there's lots of history books out there, but if you can go to first sources, you know, original sources, then you'll really know what the people meant when they said certain things. And those original sources usually involve letters. Well, we don't have letter writing anymore like we used to. And I just felt this sense of missing that special feeling you get when you open your mailbox and you see a handwritten letter addressed to you. You know, no more junk mail and flyers and all that stuff, but real actual mail. And so that is why I did the card exchange at the time. So I had basically everybody who sent me a card or a letter, I sent them a card in response. And I don't know if anyone really noticed, but when I sent out the cards to all of the recipients, I never mentioned the word Christmas. And this may shock a few people, but the fact of the matter is I don't actually celebrate Christmas. When Mr. Smith and I were raising the kids, we did celebrate Christmas. We always kept it very simple. I never went crazy overboard on gifts for the kids just because I didn't want my kids to develop a sense of materialism. Even back then when I was in my 20s, I had a problem with how gross Christmas had become since I was a kid. There's really no other word for how I feel about it. And so we always kept it to a very simple celebration. They would get a few gifts, but nothing over the top. And one of the things that we didn't do was Santa Claus. That might be shocking to some people as well. We never did the Santa Claus thing. I didn't like it. To me, you're lying to your children when you're saying that some imaginary fat guy in a sled came down a non-existent chimney and brought them gifts. I just didn't like it. We didn't do that. We didn't do Easter Bunny. We did give the kids money when they lost a tooth, but they knew there was no such thing as a tooth fairy. We just never did that stuff. And, you know, I tried to raise my kids with the understanding of the difference between needs and wants, and, you know, just tried to give them a good head on their shoulders about it. But around, I would say, '06, I started really questioning things. Something that you should know about me, if you don't already, is I'm a studier. I'm always studying things, and I've always been very inquisitive as far as the source of things or the origins of things. And, you know, I became a Christian in 1996. And the foundation that I got at that time was to compare everything to Scripture. And that was an excellent foundation, and that is what I have done pretty much my entire life ever since then. And, you know, I mean, I'm the person that when someone shares something on Facebook, I want to know if it's real or not, and I want to know where they got this information from. I'm the person who used to use Snopes all the time when I would check stories. Now I don't consider Snopes to be actually that reliable. I think there's some agendas involved there, but, you know, you do you. But I am still the person who goes to the source. And anytime I look at traditions, celebrations, holidays, I always want to know where they came from. And around '06 is when I really started deep diving into the origins of a lot of our Christian celebrations, the origins of certain holidays and customs, and I wanted to know where they came from. And the thing of it is once you learn something, you can't unlearn it. And when I started realizing the origins of a lot of the celebrations and customs and traditions that we hold, I really didn't, as a believer, want anything to do with them. I mean, there's scripture after scripture after scripture that talks about not saying you're serving God while doing the things that the pagans do. And it is so just baked into a lot of the things that our culture does that I just can't do it. And, you know, once I started really studying and seeing, well, first of all, I mean, anybody who's read their Bible knows that the whole Christmas celebration that we have isn't biblical. And, I mean, most people know Jesus wasn't even born in December. I mean, it takes a few seconds to figure that out. But just the whole celebration was just, I found myself, even though we kept it to a minimum to begin with, I wanted to do it less and less. I mean, I really didn't want to do it at all, but, you know, my family was probably going to revolt if I just said no more of it. And so what I did was, as someone who didn't want anything to do with that holiday, I just started making it as minimal as possible. Any decoration that I had nothing to do with traditional Christmas celebrations. I just decorated for the season. I decorated with snowmen and snowflakes and wintry things and deer, not reindeer. I just made it pretty. And that was kind of how I did things. We haven't had a Christmas tree in a very long time. And so every year, basically, it just got smaller and smaller until I basically treat it as another day. I don't do it. And there's a part of me that really felt like having done that card swap was maybe a little deceptive, because even though I didn't use the term Christmas, it probably came across as a Christmas card. And, you know, it has bugged me ever since, which is why I've not done any announcements like that the last couple of years. I mean, I do appreciate when people send me cards over the holidays, even if it's not something that I celebrate, because there's a lot of things I don't celebrate that a lot of people do. And there's a lot of things I do celebrate that a lot of people don't. I'm sure if you've been around lately, you know that I keep the biblical feasts. We just had the season of Sukkot recently, and I was camping out in my front yard, in the front garden. I had built a sukkah to eat my meals under, and just really enjoyed that season. It has such tremendous meaning. All of the biblical feasts do, and I think that Christians have been so deprived, and I've used this term before, but it's the perfect word, but we've been deprived of something beautiful. And I feel like we gave up something beautiful for a cheap counterfeit in these secularized pagan holidays that we call Christian holidays. And I don't say that to hurt anybody's feelings. Please hear me. This is who I am. This is the life that I live. And I have gotten so many questions lately that I just felt the need to address it. But I don't celebrate Christmas. I did a video about a year or so ago, I think, where I talked about how I actually celebrate Hanukkah, and I talked about why I do that. And it is a holiday that I've been celebrating for a few years now. And while technically that isn't a biblical holiday, it's not a biblical feast, I am perfectly happy and comfortable celebrating it because of its history and its meaning. Now, there is, of course, one holiday that is our typical American holiday that I do love celebrating, and that is Thanksgiving. And I mean, because if you think about Thanksgiving, the whole meaning of it is thanking the Lord for all of our blessings, thanking Him for everything that we have, no matter what the circumstances is. It's just a day of being grateful. And it is a day of having a feast with your family. And as someone who loves to cook for the family, I mean, that's just my happy place. There's nothing better to me than having a great big feast and all of my family there to enjoy it. So the whole day is all about food, family, and thankfulness. And I don't think you can get much better than that. All right, my battery died. That's why I always keep an extra one in my pocket when I'm filming, especially when I come out here. But as I was saying, I've gotten a lot of questions about it, and I just wanted to share my perspective on things. I do not profess to have all of the answers. I don't even pretend to. I don't. And I don't have everything right all the time, but I do my best. I try to study things out and share what I learn as I learn it. And that's all I think anybody can ask for. And where we don't have things right, then, you know, that's what grace is for. That the Lord can make up the difference where we fall short. But I do think we should do our best and do things the best way that we can and the best way that we know how, and continue to study. Just be like the Bereans, study the scriptures and see that everything is just as it ought to be. So, whew, and that sun just came out. It has been an overcast and cloudy day today, and it still looks like it wants to rain a little bit more, but we're getting a little bit of sun at the moment. If you have any questions about my beliefs or anything like that, please leave them in the comments down below. But speaking of comments, I just wanted to add this real quick. If I see a question or a comment and I respond to it, if that person then responds a second time to my reply, I do not get a notification of that. So if you guys do a follow-up question, I am not going to see it. YouTube does not give me a notification, does not show it to me as a new comment. So if you ever have a question and I answer, and then there's a follow-up question or a follow-up statement that you want me to see, can you leave it as its own comment, as a new comment under that video? Because if you do it as a reply under my reply, YouTube doesn't show it to me. So the only way I'm going to see it is if you do it as a new comment all by itself. So if you've had follow-up comments that I never answered, that's why. YouTube doesn't show me that. So that's it for today. I wasn't even sure what I was going to talk about when I came out here to the greenhouse. But with the holiday season coming up, I just really felt like that was something that I needed to address. It's been kind of bugging me and nagging at me. So thanks for hanging out with me here again today. My name is Constance at A Good Life Farm, and I'll talk to y'all next time.